I think then we're just going to do, so yeah, we're just going to talk for a few seconds and then switch back and forth. We'll see. Okay, cool. All right. All right, cool. So let me just share the screen and we start. Okay. Thank you very much for being here today. My name is Ameen Altajer. I want to thank the team at BCCI for doing the whole thing. It's very cool to see, collaboration with the government and those entities to bring value to people here and really benefit everyone else. So the name of this topic is the name of the talk is going to be artificial intelligence, leveraging the tech in e-commerce, which is a pretty important deal as far as everyone knows. Okay. So a bit about me. My name is Ameen Altajer. You can access my website at ameenaltajer.com. I'm also available at the handle, which is at Ameen Altajer. I actually used to work in Saudi Aramco. I also worked in the States for quite some time. My work was strictly technical, so I worked in R&D, research and development. I also worked in simulation, which is pretty close to developing games, basically. And the funny thing is that I got the gig by having a portfolio in game development. When I came back to Bahrain around, I believe, was it 2012, give or take, I created a company called Engine Technologies that was all about creating game experiences and simulation experiences for customers and users. However, in 2013, we had to go and pivot by a bit, and we created INFINITEWARE, which is a rebranded business of ours, and it's all about artificial intelligence as a core product, and then we do things on the side. So yeah, so in INFINITEWARE, being an AI company, we live by 3 values. The first one is we automate mundane or repetitive work, which is really important. Now, if you ever got the chance to work in a corporate environment, you know how mundane or repetitive some of the tasks are, correct? And so in INFINITEWARE, what we do is that we promise you that we take the mundane and repetitive work and we just get you to focus on what matters most. And this is exactly the second point. So we promise more intellectual bandwidth, meaning when you have the chance to go and focus on, when we can see Khalifa now here. All right, so Khalifa, we saw a glimpse of you for a second. Okay, back to the subject. So we've also promised people more intellectual bandwidth, meaning that the second you get the chance to go and leave all the mundane or repetitive work for somebody else, you get to have more space to focus on what matters most. The third thing is we utilize intelligence to make value, meaning with the advent of artificial intelligence and everything that happens there, we can now create intelligence and value, and that's pretty much it. So some of the clients that we worked with across the years is, you've got Saudi Aramco, the biggest by far. We also work with STC. We also work with Zain. We also worked Bahrain International Circuit. A couple of universities here and there. So this is some of the stuff, some of the people that we worked with, along the years. So the structure for today is going to be the following. So we're going to tackle 4 things. The first one is we're going to talk about AI for a bit on understanding. We want to understand what happens under the hood, how it works, the confusion, the misconception, and we also want to go to the applications, the things that we can do in the use cases in artificial intelligence. We also want to talk about how we can adopt it in the business and startups specifically. And as we said, since this talk is all about e-commerce, we're going to be tackling the applications for e-commerce specifically in this talk. Last but not least, we're going to tackle challenges or risks. We're going to talk about how artificial intelligence is not a silver bullet. It has a lot of issues and problems along the way. However, it is really, really good when it comes to doing few things really, really well. So far so good. Can you just hear me again? Nothing's bad going on with the audio and the video. I believe I don't have the webcam happening with the slides altogether. Maybe the team here with BCCI can help me with that.
Hey, I disconnected for a second. I apologize for that. But I can hear you clearly. The presentation is on screen, okay. And I think what if anyone has any questions, we can leave maybe halfway. We can have a section for a few questions and open the floor to discussions before we continue, just to have a recap.
Oh yeah, sure. That would be very nice. I just want to double check, Khalifa. Can you guys enable the video and the slides all together, or is it just that of this? Because I work by
I just sent you an invite to start your video as well.
All right,
there we
cool.
go. Perfect.
Fantastic. And you can see the slides as well, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we are on a great journey here. Okay, so I promised you guys in the middle of the session, I'm going to break for a few questions, and then we can go forward again. Okay, so there you have it. There's the structure. Let's go forward. So the first chapter that we want to talk about here is all about AI. We want to understand how it works, what's really real about it, and the misconceptions that we keep hearing about all over the internet. So one thing that you guys need to know about, and that is almost everything that you hear about on social media, might not be very correct. So the thing, the reason I put that slide in here is because I want you to tread carefully. There's a lot of stuff on AI. Not a lot of things are really correct. So just beware as you tackle that area, and you're trying to somehow break into the area and put more of the tech in your business. So just be very careful of the hype. Try to go to really solid resources when you want to get information. Let's get back to the definition here before we start. So we keep hearing about artificial intelligence, but what does it really mean? And so the real definition of artificial intelligence really differs depending on the context that you're using here. But however, if you stick to what Wikipedia has to say, it's the following. It is, generally speaking, artificial intelligence is all about artificially depicting cognitive skills like learning and problem solving, most of the time mimicking human intelligence. So the thing is, we as human beings, we believe that we are the most intelligent species ever. And so what happens is we somehow associate intelligence to our specific skill set. What that means, things like problem solving, learning, the ability to adapt and adopt, the really core skills that not every species, not all the species, have those things. And so the idea here is you want to somehow reproduce some of those things and give them to the machine, be it a program or even a robot of some sort. So what happens here is that the two core skills that I want to focus on are learning and problem solving. So learning on its own is very easy to say. However, it's super difficult to implement. So if you're a programmer, you probably know that how difficult it is to write a program that can really be general and deal with different kind of variations and scenarios. And also problem solving. So humans are really good when it comes to solving issues. Imagine I have a problem with my phone. So I can just look at the thing from all angles and probably figure out how to fix it. So those two core skills are very easy to say, however, extremely difficult to implement. And so to get you guys a good analogy on how the whole thing really works, back in the day, if you wanted to create a program or you wanted to build a solution, the following had to be done. So you go and work with a business analyst, the guy that would create the business requirements for the solution that you want to somehow achieve, and then you will get a hold of a programmer or somebody that does the tech, and then you will ask the technical guy to go and get you the business requirements in a tangible format, meaning you're going to let them create a program that exactly translates what those business requirements are, and by the end of the day you have your output or your program that does that magic. Now this system has worked for us for a lot of years, which was really, really great. However, there's a lot of flaws in that system. The first thing is, if the business analyst is not really that great when it comes to drafting the business requirements, or even from a language perspective, these guys are not really good when it comes to drafting the requirements, the programmer is going to have a very hard time trying to implement those things because there's a lot of dependency on the actual language. And so the output or the program where the business logic happens might not really work well because there's a lot of differences in language. The programmer themselves might not be really good when it comes to dealing with the tech. So there's a lot of factors here that can really make the problem really difficult. But this is a very common use case, building systems through a programmer. There are a lot of problems where people can't just create a program for it. It's super difficult. A good example is, imagine you're trying to tell the difference between cats and dogs. Where you have cats on the other hand, on one hand, and you have dogs on the other hand. How can you write exactly a program that can tell the difference between cats and dogs? It might not be easy. Ask any programmer. They're going to tell you, where should I start? Should I look at the picture and the pixels and the colors of the pixels? Where do you exactly start? There's a lot of variables. You have some cats that are, for example, brown, and some cats that are white, and there are a lot of commonalities between cats and dogs. However, it is super difficult to create a program that does that distinguish mechanism. Okay, so machine learning is exactly that. So machine learning, what it does is it flips the whole paradigm. It tells you, just give me the input that you want and give me the output that you want, and I'm going to create the program for you. Just digest that for a second. So for that specific problem, the analogy that we brought with cats and dogs, instead of me hiring a program to do the actual job, what I can do is just get a hold of a very large volume of cats photos and also another set for for dogs photos, and just push them into this generic system that we call machine learning or AI agent. And then by the end of it, as you feed the system cats or dogs, every time you do it like picture by picture, you tell the system that this is a cat, this is a dog, this is a cat. So you're basically supervising the machine. You're giving the machine or the program more information as you feed data. And by the end of it, the program is going to really tell the difference between cats and dogs, and can even generalize to a great extent, to a great accuracy, the difference between cats and dogs, even for new photos, which is super great. So just to summarize, back in the day, you had to have requirements, written requirements, a programmer involved to get you to the output. Nowadays, with machine learning, you don't do that anymore for very difficult problems. You just get information, data, so in this case, photos, and you feed them into a unified generic system that we call machine learning or AI agent. And you just tell the system, I need to know the difference between cats and dogs, and there you have it. You get an automated system that does exactly that. Cool. So we keep hearing about a lot of things here that are being used interchangeably, like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. And it begins to become a very difficult deal to really tell the difference. So let's just break it down for a second here before we chart into our journey. So artificial intelligence itself is a very big field. It has a lot of things. And by the way, in case you did not know, it was actually around the 1950s where the term came into existence, which is artificial intelligence. So we're talking like 70 years back. There's like a huge amount of years, it's a very long time. However, we had like multiple fields. We had computer vision, we had natural language processing, we had also genetic programming, evolutionary programming, very technical fields in artificial intelligence. Did not really grow that big in terms of business because it used to be within the academic area for quite some time. And then we had this sort of subfield that belongs to artificial intelligence, namely machine learning, which again relies on statistical methods in order to get to really cool things like prediction and telling the difference in a few things and really solve different issues. However, what happened around 2013, the breakthrough that changed the whole game for everyone, was the idea behind deep learning. Now, deep learning itself, as an idea, was around the 1950s. All right, was around that time basically. But what changed for all of us in 2013 is that because we had access to the cloud, and the cloud, in case you don't know what the cloud is somebody else's basically machines or somebody else's data center. And so when we had Google, Amazon Web Services, even Microsoft, charting this different areas, of the cloud itself, a lot of the computation that we need to do now is not even done on the machine itself. So even if you have a personal computer, if you have a laptop, you don't do a lot of the work that has to do with machine learning because it is very intensive, in terms of computational power. It requires a lot of power. However, with the cloud, it is just a matter of clicking a few buttons and you're good to go. You can leverage that power and really get really great results. So just think about it in this way. Artificial intelligence is a great circle. You have machine learning, which is a smaller circle, and you have a very tiny circle that is called deep learning, which heavily relies on how the human brain works. So there's a lot of inspiration from that area, okay? But the number one thing that you need is computational power, a lot of it. So the cloud is really a great fit for this. And not only that, in order to really benefit from deep learning, you also have to have a lot of data to work with. This is why, for the example that we brought in here, for the cats and dogs, you're not going to get it to work if you have like 5 photos of cats or 5 photos of dogs. You have to have thousands or even hundreds of thousands. It really depends on the context. So far, so good. Now, when we talk about deep learning itself, we have multiple fields. We have supervised learning, we have unsupervised learning, we have reinforcement learning, a lot of fields that really tackle different things. However, the most common one is called supervised learning. And the reason we call it supervised learning is because, as you have data and you feed it to this generic system, this unified generic system, what you do is, as you're feeding the data, you're somehow supervising the machine. You're telling it that, hey, this is a picture of a cat. Hey, this is a picture of a dog. And if you think about it, this requires more work from the operator or the user that is actually doing this sort of work. So we're not completely leaving it to the machine to be done by itself. There's a lot of factors where humans have to come up in here and label the data, basically putting that, hey, this is a cat, this is a dog, or even some other examples that we have in there. Unsupervised, on the other hand, means that you just feed in the data and you try to find really good use cases in artificial intelligence without even supervising the machine. So you don't tell the machine that this is a cat or a dog. You can just feed in a lot of data, and we're going to see a lot of that, by the way, in e-commerce going forward. And then the machine itself will be able to tell the commonalities, the factors that make up the whole data set that you have, which is really, really great. Reinforcement learning, on the other hand, is different. It's for simulators and games. In this talk, I'm going to show you examples for classifications, for supervised learning. Now, we have a sort of thing that we call classification. And this is purely the example that I told you guys about telling the difference between cats or dogs. So this is an example that I made in the past where I have a huge data set for cats, as you can probably see here, and I have them from different angles, and I also have dogs from different angles, different colors, different image sizes and everything. And by the way, you don't even need to go and get the data on your own. You don't need to have photos, using your own camera. There's a lot of websites that specialize in this sort of thing.
So, sorry if I may interrupt you. I just have a question. I just want to better understand. So now, when it comes to e-commerce, we all know that it's also hosted in the cloud, and that's what gives it accessibility for everyone to be able to access it. Now, in terms of the types of machine learning, the example you gave now, can you give us an example of it in actual commercial application when it comes to, say, a business that sells products online?
Yeah, sure. So imagine you're somehow trying to review what people are saying about your product, Khalifa, right? So this is a great deal. And when you have a lot of people coming in and they love your product and some of them hate your product, this happens a lot, when you have a huge e-commerce website, it begins to become a very unscalable problem to go and really tell which comments are really good and which comments are really bad. So when you have a system that was already trained, and by the way, the beautiful thing here is that you don't have to create your own AI engine from scratch. You can always rely on somebody else's work. And so we have also products here within the AI space where you can just put in a comment, and then it's going to tell you that this is, for example, 100% positive or 80% positive, or these are the keywords that these guys are talking about, specific projects that they're mentioning in here. So all of this really helps you down the line. A good example is a lot of businesses maintain Twitter presence or even Facebook presence, and so it becomes very difficult for them to read every single comment and understand what people are talking about, correct? But what happens here when you have an AI agent that automatically goes over all of these comments, you just kickstart it, it can tell you then that, hey, 60% of the people are loving your product, 40% are hating it, and all of this is being automated.
So in times like this where you see people mobilizing and shifting to the cloud, AI will help you run an e-commerce store more for the people who also want to have a one-man show, say a guy who's selling his products from small businesses and they want to go online. So they create the online store and they would leverage AI to help them, in your example, filter the comments in order to get a better understanding of how their product is placing within the current market they're targeting.
Exactly.
I just want to highlight, this is useful because you know that when you are online, you're selling the product, you're not only selling it to your local market, how a physical store is, you're opening your doors cross-border. So your potential market is the entire world. Now, even for the people that are selling online now or selling locally and have that manpower, when they open their doors overnight using e-commerce to the entire world, they might get a high scalable feedback. So the number of people that review their product, the number of people that visit their websites, one, they use the cloud to scale the power, as you mentioned, so that it doesn't crash. And then in order for the people to manage the responses, the feedback, the requests, and you can categorize them, I think that's a very effective way of using it. And is it simple as it sounds, or is it more complex than that? Are there ready-made softwares we can use?
Definitely. We have also a lot of examples I'm going to show you guys later than one, especially with demos. So you'll be able to see that, everything that we're talking about in action. But as you probably said it, I could have said it myself, better. But it's a lot of power. If you are a one-man show, you do a lot of things on your own. The more you automate, the better for you. And that is the whole key, about surviving in this time, these times. So the more you can automate, you can probably have more time to focus on what matters most. So this is a very great example on how things work within the AI space. You have photos, you need to categorize them. You don't know how to exactly do a program or buy a system that does that using machine learning straight out of the box. And we have those things in Google. I'll show you guys later on. Now, apart from classification, which is trying to figure out the type of classes that you have, like cats and dogs are a really good example for telling the difference. Sometimes you want to shoot a video, for example, and from the video you want to tell if this is a car accident or not a car accident. So this is a typical problem for classification. However, we have another field called regression within supervised learning, and the idea behind regression is that you get a prediction, like a number that is. What I'm trying to say here, you get basically an estimation in a way. So a good example here is the idea behind housing prices. Now, a lot of people believe that you have to have somebody who's really an expert in telling the exact price for a property that you want to somehow get a hold of. And if you're not the expert, it is very difficult for you to tell how much that property is really worth, right? Now, for example, in INFINITEWARE, what we've done, we've developed a very simple product where we realized we took advantage of one of our customers' data, where they have their properties, basically the number of rooms, the location, every specific thing about their properties, and they had multiple bits about that. So they had multiple houses, multiple lands, and by the end of it, because they already sold those properties, we already know the exact price of those things. And as we fed them to the system, the machine learning algorithm that we had, we managed to create a system that just by giving them the system the location of the house, the area, those parameters of the house, we can get a very accurate estimation. The matches, as we call here, basically the guys who can tell how much a house is really worth. So this is a great example. So you have classification, where you can tell things in terms of classes, and you also have the idea behind regression, where you can estimate things. So those two are the core features that allow machine learning to be really, really strong, or our AI in general. So if I had to summarize what AI can really do well, is that it can really focus on the problems that human beings are, not really good at, like computer vision, telling patterns, telling the difference between cats and dogs without really programming those details, for example. Now that you know what AI is all about, how it works on the inside, basically, let's talk about applications, which is the main meat about this talk. So number one, in my humble opinion, is the idea behind personalization. And what I mean by that is, when you go to google.com and you search for something, ever really thought about it that, the results that you're getting are not really generic results. They're basically tailored to your search preferences. I'm not sure if you've ever heard about that, Khalifa, before, but this is really amazing. So everything that you do on Google somehow goes back and revolves basically around your, the results that that you look for.
It's your online consumer behavior, I call it.
Yeah, yes. And there's a lot of stuff here that might be unethical, but the idea is you can always tailor, the kind of results that you give to your customer based on their search preferences, their favorite stuff and everything. So Google does that really, really good. And also personal assistants like Alexa or even Google here in this case. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, because I want to show you how products really leverage the whole thing with machine learning. So we have Spotify or Netflix, for the sake of example. All of these products deal with a lot of content. So if you ever use Netflix, you know that there's a lot of movies, there's a lot of shows. It becomes very difficult for us to go and, pick the right thing that matches our taste at that specific moment, when you want to somehow chill. And even for Spotify, however, because they're leveraging machine learning and AI to the max, they're even you're basically getting suggestions that match your own preferences, which is super amazing. So there's a way in the platform to push the content that suits you and leave everything else there. And if you ever went to Netflix, you will find that even every show has a sort of metric system that tells you that, hey, you're gonna probably like that 90% or 95%, in terms of confidence, basically. This recommendation sort of thing is very basic and can be done in AI really, really easily. And this is what I want to somehow talk about here when you're building e-commerce platforms. It's really important to make the experience super personal. Don't make it very generic. Meaning, when you create a system, when you create an e-commerce website of some sort, you don't want to just put the merchandise, put everything there, and allow the user or the, in this case, the client to go and figure out how to get to the right merchandise. In a way, you want to just get more information about what they search for. So every time they search in your search box, they put more text. You can actually pick that up, and using products within the e-commerce space, you can also get, the sort of products that might have a huge chance and, in terms of appeal for those users that you have. So remember, personal experiences are very special for users. When you deliver a personal experience, your customer is going to come back to you because they feel that this platform was built for them specifically. It's not generic. It only caters to what I have in mind, which is really great. And not only in terms of giving people recommendation, even the search box itself, just like what happens in Google. So in Google, you get results in terms of news, photos, whatever it is, in a personalized manner. What you can do also in an e-commerce website is that even if somebody, for example, is looking for, let's say, because you know that their past search results have been all around, for example, let's say computers or laptops. When when your users search for something, using machine learning, you can get them the stuff that are very relevant and the very top before even showing the other items. So this is very easily possible, by the way, in tools that I'm going to show you in a bit. So what I want to summarize with here in terms of the first point is that a personalized experience is the best thing that you can give to your customers. Always make sure that what you're delivering to your customer is a personalized experience. You don't want to show them that, hey, this is a generic website. You might get what you want or you might not. Just show them that, hey, I have products for you, services, and you can actually do that now in real life using machine learning. The second point here is better visibility and prediction, which is super also important for a lot of people. Remember, Khalifa, when I was talking about the idea behind telling how your product is doing? So, yeah. When you go to banks, for example, even stores, they have a box at the very end where they tell you, can you just put your comments in a paper and just let us know? I mean,
so like a
to be quite
suggestion
honest,
box.
exactly, like a suggestion box. But how often would somebody really put valid information there? I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying that it is becoming very difficult for people to get used to those old methodologies when it comes to giving feedback and comments. Now, the new world is operating differently. It's operating on top of Twitter, Facebook, those social media networks, where people just, rant and put notes and talks and everything. And so Twitter, for example, is a very good platform when it comes to receiving how your product is being perceived, how your services, how even your brand is doing out there. So one way that we can leverage machine learning or AI, by the way, remember, you're not doing everything from scratch. There's a lot of tools that benefit from that. And everything changed after 2013. However, not a lot of people really embed those technologies within their platforms. So with sentiment analysis, it's very easy to just install a system of some sort that looks for specific keywords. Imagine your system is, or let's say, for example, a brand like INFINITEWARE, we can just find those hashtags that belong to us, and then the sentiment analysis dashboard in the system is going to tell us that, hey, people love this product that is called Calvaria. They really hate the other product. Your customer service is not doing really, really well. And so all of these things can happen in real time, and that is the magic of it. So an AI system is so fast and so great, it connects to all these systems in real time. You don't have to wait for a specific fiscal year where you go and you say, okay, it's about the time that we go and check the input that we have from our users. No, you get those things in real time. And just a small trivia for you guys, Barack Obama, in his race for presidency, actually used all of that. So they used to have these war rooms, what they call them war rooms. Basically, they have complete intelligence and real-time view on how they're doing all in all. So, for example, they have keywords that are coming in from a state like Ohio or different states, and then he can see it in real time. Bars going up, bars going down, and then he can act on it. Sometimes in business, acting fast is the key to survive. So there you have it. This is for sentiment analysis and products and reviews. And even need a want. Yes.
Would you say that now replacing the suggestion box, or even if I may allow it, surveys, there are lots of online businesses today that in order to make data-driven decisions or know what to take next, or if their customers are satisfied, they send surveys out. And
yes.
even half the people fill out these surveys. How
Exactly.
was your experience checking out? What did you think of the actual product? And that type of thing. So if I was to find an online tool and I just put it on my e-commerce website, that would be able to tell me real time how their experience was based on overall how the global experience is.
Of course.
They would be able to tell me real time and how I would be able to assess my decision making into, say, increasing more of a specific product in real time and not waiting for it to come out of stock. Making my checkout process 2 steps and not 3.
Exactly. So those things, those nuances, Khalifa, they happen very late in the product life cycle most of the time because people leverage very old traditional methods of getting feedback. However, because the whole world is now changing in terms of getting feedback and getting people comments on their products and their services, social media is a great deal. There's a lot of pros and cons to it. However, if you're a business, you can really leverage it. Not only to target ads. Yeah, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, so basically it's changed. Now there are a lot, I personally believe that there's no such thing as looking back anymore. You don't wait for a campaign to be over, a sale to be finished, in order for you to be able to amend or change it for, say, the next year or the next quarter. Now it's all real-time information, and that's the power that e-commerce and online businesses give you.
Exactly. You have to move really, really fast. And there's no better way than having a dashboard that is powered by AI to get you real feedback. Because even if you have the manpower, or let's say the capacity, the financial capacity to hire people to look into those comments and understand what they're saying, you're not going to be scalable. If your product does really, really well and it's picking up super fast, it might be, it's going to be very difficult to scale with that sort of demand. However, with machine learning, it does it really, really well. And we're going to get into these demos.
On that note, do you want to see if any of the audience have any questions?
Sure,
I'd
love to. I'd love to.
We can do the same thing towards the end. If there's anyone who has any questions, feel free to write them down in the group chat or raise your hand, and hopefully we'll be addressing them.
Yeah, so Qasim is talking about Aliza, which is, it's a very popular, thing that happened in the past, which is really great, in terms of the instant messaging sort of thing. And so it's really, might be trivial to say, well, we're getting, questions in here that, we have a product that goes by the name of Coveria. So we were just experimenting with the idea of building an AI chatbot that is not as common as what you get basically on the internet today. So we built an AI chatbot that is strictly for internal, communication that can be used in banks, that can be used like within insurance companies. And so, because, working in the corporate environment for a very long time, and I forgot to talk about, that I used to work for multiple banks for probably 10 years. There's a lot of wasted time and effort just going on, hey, do you have the information? Hey, where's the information? Where can I get the information? When you have a reliable virtual AI assistant that works internally and is connected to all of these mediums systems, it's just a matter of just speaking what you want, even if you have a broken English, even if you have a broken Arabic, And the magic here with Coveria, for example, that we built probably in the last 6 years, is that it learns, the more you talk to it. So in a way, we're leveraging machine learning to enhance even the algorithm that helps us to figure out the terminology that you're using. Okay, so is there any questions before we move on?
I don't think we got any questions,
okay,
but we're all good if you can continue.
Sure. All right. So coming back to the subject, even an example like knowing if your customer needs something or they want something, can also be achieved using machine learning, using classification, what we've done in the past. However, just to wrap everything up, about these things here, remember, if you're building things from scratch on your specific data for your specific platform, you might have to go and get a lot of data. This is why I really urge businesses to start with the mindset of, storing data so we can realize them and use them somewhere else down the line. However, if you're starting with, let's say physical papers and such, maybe it is the time that you go for the digital platform. So you can leverage those things. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for you. Okay, moving on. Even the idea, the idea of, predicting if your inventory might, finish for that specific product, or planning, even like forecasting if I need to buy, those items before I run out of those items. A system that is based on machine learning can really tell the difference and can tell from specific trends that, hey, there's a lot of demand on those things, and then it can even help you by automating the way you can. So a lot of companies take it very far. So it's not for them just the idea of getting information and telling us as humans what to do. It can even, I mean, those companies delegate the wheel to the machine or the program itself to even buy in inventory, which is really great, but it has to be done with extreme, basically attention. Okay, so I have a question here. What is upcoming? What is the upcoming AI that's coming to Bahrain? I'm not sure if I understand the question. However, if you're talking about like the trends that are hitting Bahrain, a lot of stuff that are getting Bahrain by surprise, like chatbots are becoming a very hot topic. A lot of businesses are investing in building their data platform, like wallets. You've probably seen a lot of wallets happening lately, right, Khalifa? Everyone is coming up with a new wallet every single day, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What is it about the tech companies? Yeah, so yeah, Tesla is, okay, so we have a question here. Yeah, so it's not only about e-commerce. I know in this talk I'm trying to focus on e-commerce itself. However, there's a lot of use cases that span healthcare, that span government, and we're going to get into those in a second. But you guys are probably very happy about subjects that you're asking questions that are within the material down the line. Let me show you some demos so we can get things up and running before we move forward. Okay, let me just take you here, and I have my screen here. So okay, so in Microsoft they have a service called Microsoft Cognitive Services, which is here, as you probably can tell. Okay, and Microsoft Cognitive Services is a cloud service that was done by Microsoft, where there's a lot of work that depends on machine learning and AI, but you don't have to do the very heavy lifting here. You don't have to provide the data and everything. Everything was done by Microsoft for you guys. They've done the training, they've done the data collection, the labeling, the AI, feeding, every single thing was done by them. And now as a user, you only have to go and use the features that they have. So when you go to the cognitive services here, they have a huge catalog. Something that has to do with decision, language, speech, vision, web search. Let me just show you a couple of things here so you can get the idea. Under language, you have, for example, text analytics, which is very common. If I open that now, there's a lot of things in here, but what comes to my mind is the idea, the sentiment analysis, basically, and that is, imagine I have custom text. So let me just write something in here. All right, let me just say, I love the talk, and I really enjoyed it. Hopefully that's what you feel currently. Let me just do analyze. And when I click on that, give it a second. So yeah, there you have it. It is 100% confidence level that this is a positive sentiment. It's not even neutral, it's not even negative, it's 100%. And this is all coming custom. So let me write the other polls. I'm just gonna say, I hate this. I don't want to see this guy again. Pretty harsh, but you get the message. Okay, I'm just gonna say analyze here. And there you got it. 100% negative this time around. Clearly, the confidence level is really, really high. Now, this machinery that we have here on Microsoft, it's actually exposed to people using what we call APIs. So if you have technical people on your team, it's very easy for them to leverage that sort of functionality and logic within their applications. It's very easy. So sentiment analysis is only one thing. And this is where we can, just feed in the tweets that we have from Twitter or even Facebook comments or even Instagram comments to this sort of engine dynamically in real time and update the dashboards. Really beautiful thing that we've done in the past, a lot of it. Let me show you another example that I'm really a big fan of is the idea behind speech. So speech is very difficult. I'm not sure if Khalifa, you witnessed this. Remember before 2013 in YouTube, there's this feature that allows you to see the captions, as the video is playing. There's a lot of mistakes prior to 2013. There's a lot of just crazy text happening in there that has nothing to do with the video itself. Yeah. Because the AI engine is not really that accurate when it comes to really understanding the voice with different accents, different backgrounds. In 2013, Google really changed their whole speech engine, and they based it on machine learning, or deep learning to be specific here, and it made a lot of great results. So let me show you here. We have a demo here called speech to text. Let me just click on that and see if it works. Hopefully it's gonna work. I'm just gonna enable the mic here and hear me out. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you and good night. And there you have it. How great is that, Khalifa? Isn't that amazing?
That's really accurate.
Yeah, super. Hey, so yeah, and this is, by the way, also on the cloud, which means you don't have to go and create the engine. You don't have to invest in a lot of machinery, a lot of data center work. You know, you just connect to the API, and your programmer will probably know how to do this. And you just pay super, let's say, very humble amounts of money. You know, very humble amount of cash in order to get that functionality. And this is just basic few things. I'll show you one last example from Microsoft before I move on. So they have in Vision, in the catalog of Vision, the idea behind face. So they built what we call an AI model, basically AI work that can tell the characteristics from a face just by looking at it. So I have my photo in here, and I'm going to take that URL here and feed it to the system. I'm going to put my image URL in here. I'm going to say submit. Give it a second. It's going to load my photo in here. I'm going to use the other model just to double check. And there you have it. I have a lot of characteristics about my face, so let's hear them out. It is saying that my hair color is black, 99% accuracy. Great, good to know. My wife is going to be super happy about that. Smile, 95%, also great. Gender, male, thank God. Age, 38, pretty close with the beard. Facial hair, mustache, beard, sideburns, it's great. Glasses, reading glasses, no makeup on the lips or the eyes, good to know also. Emotions, 95 or 96% happiness. So yeah, there you have it. There's a lot of information that you can also get from the photo. Now imagine you're getting this in real time. You'll be able to tell a lot of things here. I believe the gentleman here, I'm sorry, somebody asked, but I don't know exactly where that is here now. How can you exactly leverage that in real time, even apart from e-commerce? I'll show you an example that we've done. I'll tell you about an example that we've done for a customer of ours in Saudi. We actually leverage the CCTV feed when people come in to the store, and when they leave, we also take that photo, that frame from the CCTV camera, and then using a lot of the functionalities that you can see here, we can reconcile, and we can tell that the guy had a very awful experience with the customer representative there. And then on the way out, we have a kiosk that can get you a perk. It will get you a gift of some sort just on the way out, so you can retain you as a customer. So all of that was super positive because we had this sort of thing in real time happening. Imagine doing that like after a week or after a month. It might be too late, but doing that in real time is the real magic behind that.
Now, I mean, you're the expert on this, but correct me if I'm wrong. So you first started with the cats and dogs example to identify what it is, right?
Yes.
Now it's going even deeper and identifying even the facial characteristics
Exactly.
and the emotion of the actual person. So if I was to use it, I would be able to determine even in a product in detail, more specifications.
And this is nothing, by the way. This is very straightforward. There's a lot of custom functionalities that we built in-house that even does it even more than that. But however, Microsoft gets you this out of the box. You don't have to invest a lot of work. And there you have it. Actually, one last photo in here where you just have that photo here with the girl that's crying. Not happy about the photo, but however, I found it online. And there you got it. And it tells you that this is a female, age 26, no glasses. The general emotion is sadness. And there you got it. If you go here, she's not bald. She has a brown hair color, 100%. Also makeup on the lips, makeup on the eyes. So there's a lot of cool things happening in here, and it's super accurate. And this is what I want to shed some light on here. It is super accurate. You can really rely on it. We've done it in business and production. Okay, so these are a couple of things that I wanted to show you guys before we continue here. And so far, so good. Do we have any questions, Khalifa? Should we continue and then come back? And how does it work? What do you prefer?
I think we're good now. We're just. I think we have a question here from Barry.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Barry's asking us. Go for it, Khalifa.
Now, is AI being deployed out in business-to-business sales? Ideally, we would like to automate the process of searching for candidates online.
Of course. Yeah. So. Yeah, so people do that a lot, especially Amazon. Amazon is a heavy reliant on the idea of going over the mass and just finding the right candidate. And we do that here in INFINITEWARE. However, there is one subject that not a lot of people really shed light on, which is the ethical subject of it. Now you can really have this first draft going through a tremendous amount of resumes in order to get what you find that is really suitable for the position that you have. However, that AI engine has to be, let's say, has to be fed with the right information in the beginning when it was built in order to make sure that it chooses the right person. So we have a very huge problem in the AI space that goes by the name of bias. Everything that you put in the system when you're trying to train it, when you feed it in the beginning, if you remember with the cats and dogs example, if I didn't have a lot of photos, a lot of diversity, I might have a biased, in a way, direction. And this, by the way, happened for Amazon. This is a real serious case that happened. So Amazon used to do this all the time. And their facial recognition system, because they used a data set that is heavily populated with white faces, basically white tone faces. They didn't have a lot of dark tone faces. That system did not manage to figure out if you have a dark tone face. It did not even recognize them, which was in a way like a really huge red flag that, hey, this is something that needs to be regulated, because if the data that was used to be what they we used to feed the system is not being scrutinized, not being vetted, we can really run into a lot of trouble. So I'm not a big fan of using such systems in the government because it can eliminate chance and rules. However, in a few cases like in business, it wouldn't really matter. No, there's not going to be a very like a huge impact or catastrophe of using that system. But in real life and real use cases that have to do with luck and cash flow, I would be very careful, honestly. Okay, how can we bring in robots from the market? What is the best AI to use for DC? So, okay. So, Khalifa, I think we have 10 minutes left, right? Give or take.
Yeah, I think we have roughly around 10 minutes, give or take. So, let's try to wrap up the presentation and also see at the same time the audience if they have any points they wanted to be discussed. I'll just quickly reply to the question here that's coming. How can we how this can be integrated to apps? So whatever the example Ameen showed you, the Microsoft example, it's available and you pay a very minimum price. So I think it's on a monthly basis. I'm not sure how the billing plan is, but you can have any developer integrated to your website, to your e-commerce store, to your platform to do whatever you needed to do. So the documentation, everything is available. And Microsoft is only one example of the multiple and hundreds of tools available out there for you to use.
Exactly. So Google does that also, and there's a lot of vendors that do that, especially the cloud, right? Okay, going forward, because we have little to no time to spend here. Okay, so it's not only for photos. If we're talking about real life, if we're talking about banks, even fraud detection is being done this way. So when you have a company that can, the company that has a history when it comes to understanding that this is a fraudulent transaction, this is not a fraudulent transaction, we have systems that use the same functionality from that cats and dogs analogy, and they're actually using them in real life and telling the difference between real or fraud detection. And I know a lot of banks here in Bahrain that have done this, and that was really, really great to see how they did it from scratch. Even though they can leverage an off-the-shelf solution, however, they built it from scratch. So kudos to them. Even the credit scoring. So again, here we're touching on the ethical space, at least to me. Credit scoring is even being done automatically using AI currently. So going over your transactions, double checking, if you have the right history, the right portfolio, the right track record, in order to get you the right credit scoring. So a lot of shady stuff in here, but they're being done in real life. We have also in manufacturing. Don't get me started with robots. Really great deal. I've seen them in action while I was off Bahrain. So yeah, the key takeaway here is just allowing the machine to do all the work on its own whenever you can. So the more you automate, the more you can focus, basically. So even in the government, so Tamkeen, by the way, in case you guys did not know, they're leveraging OCR to the fullest. So even when you upload something on their systems, on their ERP portal, they also leverage a lot of machine learning that is based on OCR in order to tell that this is the number of, let's say, the invoice, this is the number of the code. So all of these things are being fetched automatically from your scans using machine learning. If you have to ask me, I'll tell you that this is super great because you're really putting that technology into actual use that can benefit all of us. We also have the idea of RPA. So RPA stands for robotic process automation, which means Even if you don't want to get your hands dirty with AI or even program, you can just download an application called an RPA where you can drag and drop things, and then there you have it. You can automate certain tasks in the office, like sending emails, reading a PDF, cutting and pasting things, sharing files. All of these things can be done using an RPA toolset. A very common one is called UiPath. You should check it out online. It does that really, really, really great. So yeah, a lot of people have a lot of doubt when it comes to making sure that AI does exactly what it promotes. But yeah, if you ever know somebody that studied radiology, it's a very difficult deal to get a hold of. And with this gentleman underwing, which is a super huge figure in the AI space, him and his team managed to create a system that can tell from the X-ray scans that, hey, this is probably pneumonia or not, and which was super accurate, by the way. It even exceeded the cap that was done by human beings. So check this out. This is, by the way, open source, so you can see these results in action. Even in our times now with the COVID-19, social distancing is a huge deal. So companies like Amazon have worked on an AI facility, AI tool that using CCTV cameras can tell the difference if you have people that are next to each other or so. So one of the beautiful things that we can relate to during these times. Legal documents can be scanned also, and even JP Morgan now really heavily rely on that to tell if there's shady clauses within that huge stack of legal papers. So as you can probably see, there's a lot of ways you can use those things. Customer service, exactly what we've done. There's a lot of dimensions to it, but however, we just stuck to the idea of video and facial gesture, but you can also use vocal tone and a lot of things to make it much more advanced. Customer segmentation, which is a very important deal if you're dealing with e-commerce, because you want to make sure that, hey, I have the circle that pays a lot of money, and I have a circle that requires more marketing, let's say, campaigns in order to sway them to get into the product. So there you have it. I would just want to focus on the last part, which is really important for me, which is adoption of risks. And I just want to conclude with the idea of how we can get started as a business. We can do it in 6 minutes, unless Khalifa is going to spare us and give us a few more minutes.
Sure, we can wrap it up in a few more minutes, no worries.
Okay, cool. So when it comes to adoption, remember that AI is not a silver bullet. No matter what you heard, it does not do every single thing all the time. You have to really just pick a narrow field that it does really, really good. So a good target is replacing routine tasks or jobs. And starting is super easy. Let me show you. So if you're planning to do this on your own, you want to experiment, just download a demo of UiPath, for example, the product that I talked about, which is part of the RPA toolset, and it allows you to do it with just drag and drop. Super easy. Check this out. And the one thing you want to do as a businessman is not just go crazy about AI. Just have the right question. Do I have a problem that is worthy of solving using artificial intelligence? Because as experienced people here in the field, I can tell you, this never gets old, by the way. A lot of people are trying to get on the wagon of AI. However, AI might not be the best choice. It even hurts the business sometimes because you have to create data, you have to change your pipeline, your intelligence pipeline. Not always good. So just focus on the question. If AI is the right deal, go for it. Otherwise, just leave it out there. And also, even if you want to do things from scratch, don't do anything from don't base your work heavily on, don't do it just on your own. There's a lot of work out there that you can base your work on. A good example is the open source community, which is very generous. So you can see a lot of tools that were done in the open source space where you can just base your work. When we're talking about machine learning, if you're interested, you want to tinker with things, programs, you want to tinker if you're a programmer, you have NumPy, TensorFlow, which is a product by Google that went free, and it's open source, by the way, PyTorch by Facebook, Keras, OpenCV, and OpenCV stands for Open Computer Vision, which is a great tool set in order to tell if this is a face, even better than what you've seen with Microsoft so far. So you can even detect cars, you can even train it. So there's a lot of tools there that you can work on, and you don't do anything from scratch. So this is the thing that I want to tell you. Apart from that, if you think that you don't want to tinker with the code, you don't want to do things on your own machine, the cloud is always there for you. And we have to be super happy about that because in Bahrain, currently with AWS, we have access to a data center that is currently within our perimeter here. So in terms of performance, we're doing well. In terms of latency, and even legal jurisdiction, we're doing super well. So if your product has to do with, let's say, personal data, in Bahrain, you're at least covered in a way. Last but not least, I just want to tackle those things in here. So currently we're hearing a lot about open banking. In case you did not know about it, I have a lot of talks on open banking. You can check them out on Google, on YouTube, sorry. But the one thing you want need to know about open banking is that it is opening, it's opening for us even more places and places basically to chart to. So with open banking, it's just as easy of allowing your customer to get you the access to their bank account and seeing their transactions, even creating good products from those transactions. So imagine I go to somebody else's bank account. Of course, after they get me their consent, I can see that these guys are heavy, let's say, coffee drinkers, and then I can create a product that does exactly that. Maybe a coffee mug or a special thing that has to do with those sort of things. So with more data, with more access data, you can do this. And open banking is a very great deal on that. Just to summarize on the business side, always invest in good data and people who can handle it, because it is going to be importantly used later down the line. Two, don't get onto the AI wagon just yet. Just understand what you need to accomplish before you get there. Three, utilize the existing tools, infrastructure. Don't do anything from scratch unless you're experimenting and you have the capacity for that. Four, start with a small proof of concept, get results. Now for the proof of concepts, you can rely on something like the Microsoft Cognitive Services Stack, because it's easy to work with, and then there you have it. Now concluding with the rest, even though I gave you like a very cool brief about how AI is great and amazing, it has a lot of trouble. It has a lot of problems though. It is very data hungry, meaning if you want to create things from scratch, you're not utilizing what the cloud has. If your problem is very specific, you need to get the data and do it on your own. It is very data hungry. You might even have to go and coordinate with a company that can get you the data in order to do your job, which is difficult, not always accessible all the time. And it's also a black box. So just coming up with the things that we have here, remember when we said AI is something that gets you the code in the very end? Not really true. It's more of a black box. So it is a complicated formula and math that is producing the sort of output that you get at the very end. So trying to understand how it works on the inside might not be the best choice. As I was talking earlier on about things like jobs, finding candidates might not be very ethical, but it does the job really, really well. Also, it's very slow to train data. So even if you're using the cloud, not for getting those things from the catalog, as we've seen with Microsoft's catalog, building or using the computational power to train or getting new models from scratch is very slow. Not an easy ride. Also, there's a lot of problems for AI in terms of hacks. I also did a talk for the Ministry of Interior last year. You can probably check it out on Google, where I showed people how to manage to somehow lie to the system and show a different face and allow the system to completely understand it as a different face. Last but not least, final point here. What a marathon. There's a lot of ethical issues in acquiring the data. So we have GDPR, if you heard about it, in Europe. And in Bahrain specifically, we have Bahrain Data Protection Law, BDPL, which is now trying to tackle those issues. So even if you're doing an e-commerce platform, be very specific and clear and careful on the way you accumulate data. You always need to have the consent of the user before you go to that extent. Otherwise, you're going to be in a very difficult legal spot. In the race of business, data can either make or break your business. As you probably have seen, it is exactly the case. I want to thank you again. Thank you. I know we had to go super fast at the very end. But there you have
Thank you. If we could take one or two questions from the people, I want to ask. I'm going to use a question that was asked earlier on. There's a person that says, "Can you help me with a use case where companies could predict the loss of each project while in execution?"
Come back a bit. Come back again.
So I will just take this last question that was asked earlier on. Can you help me with a use case where companies could predict the loss in each project while it's currently being executed?
Yeah, so exactly what we talked about here were regression, which is part of supervised learning. Of course, there's a lot of variables to it. So just remember, the AI agent is not going to help you on its own. You have to have valid data. So if your data is biased, your data is not correct, you don't have the right parameters that can tell the system the difference, you might not get it. This is why people rely on machine learning engineers or even data scientists to pick the right data parameters so people can use it when building systems.
So what would you think that say throughout the course of the product, if there are variables that measure success and they'll be able to see it real time, and then based on if they would plug in previous successful and unsuccessful projects to get close determination of what the output could be.
Exactly. So the takeaway is the more you have data, the more things that you can do, and the more accurate stuff that you can have, especially with deep learning, because the system was designed in a way, or at least the algorithm was created in a way that even if you have false data, the system is going to tell the difference if you have more data. So it's a wonderful field. I know, yeah, I'm not going to be able to shed and really give it all its fairness in here.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
On behalf of the Technology Committee, I would like to thank you and everyone who participated in this call. And I would like to also let everyone know if us as the Technology Committee, we continue to try and do the best we can to reach upcoming technologies and showcase them and to make it simpler to the people and the organization, especially our members. At all times, all lines of communication are always open towards us and the Chamber of Commerce. So everyone, including you, Ameen, feel free to reach out to us at any time. And we hope to see more of you. And next time, hopefully you can take
Thank you very much.
part as a participant to the next of the series.
I will do, but thank you very much, Khalifa. It's been a pleasure. You guys can reach me at ameenaltajer.com or on my handle. I'm always available. And thank you again for this. I'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, and see you. Bye-bye.